Hi, welcome to the Nine-Sided Circle for February 2nd, 2020. I'm your host, Noor Kyle, along with
me, your other host, and Noor Kyle's faithful sidekick, Mushtaq Ali.
Yeah, all right. So, what are we going to talk about tonight?
Tonight, we're going to talk about letting these other people in.
Oh, yeah.
There we go. I got them.
And doing our little YouTube.
Yeah. It is Zainab and Ilmar.
There we go. Welcome, guys.
Hey there.
So where were we? Oh, yes. I was about to give my usual YouTube pitch. So if you are watching this on YouTube, and you may be watching this on YouTube, but if you are watching this on YouTube, please think about taking a moment to looking down and to your right on the screen there, and you will see a little button that says subscribe. And if you would be so kind as to push that button, and perhaps even the little bell that's next to it, so that you can get notifications every time we put out one of our exciting, thrilling, incredibly adventurous videos, which are admittedly a little bit long-winded, but are still fun. And we would be joyously happy for you to do that. And you will also find down there in the description, which will be somewhere down in here, a link to our mailing list so that you can be informed before something comes up, so that you can join us, just as all of these lovely people have joined us tonight, so that this is a conversation and a dialogue rather than just Noor and I talking at you and front-loading information into your heads.
That's key for us, so we're glad that people join us. That makes it much more fun for everyone.
It really does. So, tonight, for one night only, we're going to talk about something incredibly important. And as I mentioned in the blurb, this is going to be sort of a continuation of a talk that we did almost a year ago. And there will be a link to that right up here. And at the end of the video tonight, there will also be one of those card things, either here or here, that will tell you to join that link and watch the original video, which is, I have to say, our single most popular video that we ever did, which I find surprising.
I rewatched it recently. It's definitely worth listening to again if you've listened to it before, because it's a really great starting point for a lot of this information.
And it's also a great blast from the past, because this was before we had any real equipment to be doing this, and we were like doing, God, what was it?
It was on Facebook Live, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was on Facebook Live.
Yep.
Which is an incredibly crappy platform. And so there are places where the video jumps and all sorts of stuff. And you can see the old Oakland place with the giant skull in the back and all of these things. Maybe even somebody walks past behind me. You never know.
But I like what we have now, where we get to see, at least from our perspective, we get to see everyone in Brady Bunch mode on Zoom and everything. So
yeah, it makes a really nice difference. And now you can actually talk to us rather than typing in a message and then Noor has to read it and then she has to send it to me on Messenger and all of this kind of stuff. And it was messy. This is way more fun. But it is our history.
Yep.
And in that video, in that very video, we talked about the 3 fundamental practices of our particular flavor of the work. And those practices were self-observation, self-remembering, and self-witnessing. And we did a pretty good job of teaching that. And tonight we're going to look at something that is essential to doing these or any other practices. And this brings us to the first question of the night. What can you say that you actually own, that truly belongs to you, that can't really be taken away from you? This is a trick question because Nora and I already know the right answer, and we're going to see if we can get you to get it. The right answer was right in quotes, by the way, so you can relax. We have not slipped into dogma. So what can you really say belongs to you? What cannot be taken away from you?
My first crack at it is that, strictly speaking, nothing belongs to you because it can all go away. Although there might be a point where you could say you don't exist either, if that matters.
You could say that, but then I would have to ask you, who's saying that? Standard Zen trick. Who is it that denies their own existence?
Okay, I was talking about the future rather than the present. If we're talking about the present,
That's kind of all you got, you know?
Yeah. Then I guess current perceptions.
Okay, that's an interesting answer and not incorrect. Say more about that.
Well, you've got your moment-to-moment awareness. It's there. While you're perceiving it, it can't be taken away from you, although of course it's going to change moment by moment. There's also the sense of yourself, whether you want to count that as a perception or not.
Actually, this is a damn good answer. And you're pretty much right. We might define it slightly differently for the to be more precise, but I think that we would just be saying what you were just saying. Anybody else want to take a crack at it? Say it better, differently, disagree, come up with counter arguments, whatever you want.
Dave, what do you think?
The thing that I think is that it is that one thing, the true nature behind all things, is the thing that can't go away.
That answer was too easy. Probably right, but it's too easy. So, we would say that what you truly own are three things. They're not really things, but we're stuck with English, so I'm not going to try and distort English so much that it's barely intelligible for the sake of actually speaking accurately. You guys can just mind read me and it'll be cool. Three things that we actually have, that we own, that cannot be taken away from us. Now the us is that timeless presence behind your eyes when you're truly awake. And that us owns three things. It owns its own presence, it owns its own intention, and it owns its own attention. Attention, intention, presence. These are the foundational qualities that being has. And they cannot, now I say they cannot be taken away from you. You know, give me a ball peen hammer and enough time with your skull and we can make those go away. But this is not that. You know, organic damage can screw that up, at least from the sense of being able to perceive it through your body. But in a normal, healthy human being, without organic damage to their brain, you have the ability to be present. That being can be present. And this is the, are you awake or are you asleep? When you're awake, you're present. When you are present, you are capable of making intention. And your intention is what focuses your attention. So this goes in, it starts with the three forces. This is the, you know, the as above, so below, the macrocosm is contained within the microcosm sort of thing. So this is the human reflection of the three forces in the universe, of the holy affirming, the holy denying, and the holy reconciling forces. And as it operates in the world, it is one of the 6 processes that emerge from the three forces. For those of you who took the 3 forces and 6 processes course that we did, by the way, big announcement about that at the end of the video. For those of you who took that course, you will remember that the 3 forces can be arranged in 6 configurations of sequence, which basically create the fundamental foundation of the universe. Right? So the process 321, I will refresh your memories and tell you that that is the process of freedom and wisdom. And it is the hardest of all of the processes to maintain and understand. So we have our own presence, and there are Arabic words for all of these. Noor can put them in if she wants to. You can know that they exist. They basically mean the same thing that we just said. Presence, intention, attention. Presence is the reconciling force within human beings. Intention is the denying force within human beings. And attention is the affirming force within human beings. Now, why is intention denying?
You have to do one thing rather than another thing.
Exactly. Intention is always this, not that.
But could that not be said for attention as well?
No, because attention is encompassing, it's affirming, it's going, yes, this. When intention goes, this, not that, then attention goes, yes. Which is why we call it the affirming force. It's as clear as mud, but it covers the ground. So, now this is going to be some fairly heady stuff. So feel free to jump in at any moment and ask questions, because it will help me be able to clarify what I'm saying. And I want you to all understand this, or argue me out of my position. Either way is fine, because if you can come up with a better position than this one, I will steal it from you.
Could you say a bit more about intention? I mean, I get a sort of a fundamental sense of presence as being. Okay, there's almost, and it's all doesn't really matter where I'm present or what, like there's that sort of commonality of presence, and I get something similar with attention. I mean, no matter what I'm attending to, there's a quality of attention. I don't have that clear a grasp of what intention. I mean, what's
Yeah, that's a damn good question, because intention being part of the denying force, being the yin energy, is harder to grasp.
Yeah. So can you say something that will make that? I mean, I get this. I mean, I have intentions. I experience them and stuff like that, but it's hard for me to sort of get a clean idea of it, as I seem to have of attention on the present. And there's something.
Yeah, part of that is because intention tends to be momentary most of the time.
Yeah.
We do not hold our intentions in consciousness constantly like we hold our attention. Intention tends to be, this happens, I intend this, and then it's passed to attention to make it happen. So intention, I go, oh, I want a drink of my coffee. The intention to that is literally a flash. Boom, hard. If I'm not being present, then I don't even notice the intention. It happens unconsciously. It's like the intention to walk. If I think about, oh, I got to get up and run to the bathroom real quick, I am not going to be present probably for that running to the bathroom. It's just going to be my attention onto the ground to make sure that I don't trip over the 10,000 things that are in my tiny little space here.
So often contention seems to come at the end of a decision. I was, considering this or that, and I said, okay, I'm going to do this. But very often also on simpler things, there's no sort of decision process that precedes that.
No conscious decision process. Yeah. And what we're interested here is the conscious decision process. You're making decisions every moment.
Right.
You're listening to me and you get distracted by something, and all of a sudden you have an intention to look at this rather than to pay attention to the pearls of wisdom falling from my lips.
So the way you're using intention does it or does it not have to be the consequence of a decision?
Intention is itself the decision, rather than the consequence of it. The consequence of the decision is where your attention comes into play.
Okay, and so you're saying basically, even if we're not noticing that there's a decision going on, there's presumably some kind of a below consciousness level decision process going on, which...
Yeah, think about driving. Think about when you're driving. You do not consciously drive. At least I hope not, because you would be a danger to yourself or others. All of the decisions that you make when you're driving, except for a very few, are unconscious.
All right. Yeah.
So what we are interested in here is what intentions we can make from a state of presence.
Okay.
And how that creates what we are going to talk about in a moment, which is our attentional space, which is, I wish I had invented this term. I didn't invent it. It was invented by somebody else, and Noor will put his name in at her convenience.
All right. So, yes. Thank you for being here. I'm sorry you have to run off. That's okay. Yeah. Come again.
Take care.
Great to meet you. Okay. Yes. Continue. I'm going to type it in. Yes.
Okay. So, what attention creates is the attentional space. That what I call the attentional space is the amount of attention that you can hold in the world for as long as you can hold it before you're distracted. So I make an intention to, first, I am present. Here I am, present. Om, you know. And I make an intention to breathe consciously. When I do that, I allow my attentional space to be created around my breathing. And if I'm fully focused on my breathing, which I'm not because I'm focused on both breathing and talking, I can usually split my intention in two and not lose either. But here I am, and I am focused on my breathing. And if I totally focus on my breathing, it looks like this. And I come back and split my attention so that I have enough to talk to you. But for a moment there, I was 100% attending to my breath. My entire attentional space was filled with just that. Filled with, as we say, hoshtardam. Y'all remember that? Hoshtardam? Marcella, you probably don't remember that because you weren't there. Hoshtardam means breathe consciously, attention to breath. It's the first of the 9 precepts that we work from over here.
Marcelo does remember, which is great. I'm glad that you've been following along with that stuff too.
Yeah.
And Chris Bailey is the person who
Yeah, he wrote a really excellent book called Hyperfocus.
Yeah.
Where he looks at the poor state of focus and attention in the world today.
Yeah. So to clarify, Chris Bailey came up with the term in attentional space.
Yes. Which I immediately stole from him because it was very, very, very cool and describes the phenomena that we're talking about better than any other terms I have found in English. So, you know, as per usual, I grabbed the space when he was, I grabbed the term when he wasn't looking, filed off the serial numbers, gave it a new paint job, and now it's ours. Put a little cap on its head and called it Sufi.
All right, just to be clear, how you're using that term.
I am
Is attentional space identical to attention? But it sounds to me like what you just said was attentional space is something that happens after an intention. But presumably you have to be aware of your environment often in order to form an intention also, right?
Yeah. Attentional space is the amount of attention that you have to attend to anything. And it's not very much. And I like the metaphor of space for it because to me, that's what it feels like. It's like I have this much room to attend to anything. And if I'm good, I can maybe split it up like this and have this much room for one small thought and this much room for all of my attention. So this means that I can trim my nails while I'm listening to a podcast, and I can listen to the podcast well enough to catch just about everything. If I try to trim my nails, check my phone, and listen to the podcast, I'm not going to listen to the podcast. I'm not going to get what it's saying. I cannot split my attention that much under normal circumstances. Human beings, unless they have trained themselves considerably, have a very small attentional space. A lot of what we do in our training is designed to expand that attentional space gradually over time so that we can hold more in it. The void exercise is one of expanding attentional space, for instance. And for those of you who've been doing it for a while, you will probably notice that you can hold more of your environment in your attention now than you could, say, 6 months ago.
To what extent is attentional, I don't know, capacity about time as well as space?
It probably is, but I'm not quite sure how to. Well, there is this thing of time with it, which is how long can you hold the space? And we measure that most of the time in seconds. And this is where presence and intention come back in. So I'm sitting here and I am doing my breath practice. And something distracts me. Noor asks me a really important question, and I pop out of my breath practice and I have to attend to her. I have to fill my intentional space with her because there's not enough room for both. So I listen to her and I listen to her question, and then my presence comes back and goes, okay, and my intention goes, okay, back to your breath. So intention is going to be nagging you. Once your presence has set your intention, the job of that intention is to nag you back into your attentional space over and over again to help you strengthen it. Because it is very much like a muscle. It gets stronger as you use it. It gets more flexible as you stretch it. And it gets more capable as you do things with it.
But coming back to what I think Nancy's point was, it does seem like, I mean, the immediate picture of attentional space is extended in space. I mean, how much can I attend to right now, in this, maybe in this environment? But there is a sort of a temporal attention also. I mean, how do I listen to a melody as opposed to just a single set of sequence of notes? Because I attend at the same time to a whole series of notes.
Don't even worry about that question in this context.
Okay.
You're listening to the music.
Yeah.
How much attention do you have on the music, and how often do you get distracted? So here I am. I'm sitting in a theater. I'm sitting in a concert hall, and I'm listening to the orchestra play Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. And I'm totally, my attentional space is containing that and nothing else. I'm not even aware of my environment. And then the person next to me accidentally nudges me. So a chunk of my attention is going to go over there. If enough chunks of my attention go elsewhere, I'm not listening to the music anymore. And the next thing I know, they're doing the Ode to Joy chorus, and I missed the whole introduction to that piece. I'm going, damn it, because I was busy texting on my phone to tell everybody how happy I was to be listening to this symphony. You've had this experience.
I understand that. I mean, there is, for me, a puzzle about things like music, because that's strung out over time, but that may be a topic for another time. So
yeah, music is music. That gets into a whole different thing. And we touched upon that a few weeks ago, and unfortunately you weren't here for that one, because we could have had great arguments over that. And I may do another one on time, because it is such an interesting topic. And, in that talk, we came up with the question, how long is now? And that's an interesting question. For this topic, that's not a relevant question. It's not how long is now, it is how long can we pay attention to that which we have intended to pay attention to.
Cool. I'm okay with that.
Does that make sense? I mean, your question is damn good. I love the question, but
it makes sense to me. I mean, and go on. Don't get sidetracked into the time thing, because it's obviously not quite on topic here. So
yeah, but nag me and we will make it a topic again sometime in the not too distant future, because I love talking about time.
I love nagging you. So what the hell?
Yeah, what a deal.
What a deal. Eh?
So we have, within attentional space, we have, again, the three qualities manifesting in one way or another. And we're going to look at two questions. How deeply can we attend to how deeply can we attend to what we intend to? It's almost a tongue twister. And how many times can we split our attention without losing consciousness, without losing our presence? So when I'm attending to something, my presence is there, right? If I am deeply involved in listening to Beethoven's Ninth, which is, by the way, one of the best pieces of music ever written, as far as I'm concerned. Do you know why I think so?
Why do you
Tell
think
us
so?
a great one. Come on, leave us not in suspense.
Because life did its best to kick the crap out of Beethoven. It did everything that it could to just beat the shit out of him. You know, it left him alone and friendless and deaf, you know, losing the one attribute to music that he would have valued the most. And Beethoven's Ninth Symphony was his reply to life. And that's why I love it so much. Because when you can say that back to life after it's did everything that it did to Beethoven, yeah, that's pretty cool. Yes, Kyle.
I wanted to ask you about that third question. For the second question you mentioned about presence,
Mm-hmm.
I did not get to write it down. I'm wondering if you might be able to repeat it.
If I could remember what it was. Give me a quick context. So I know where I was in my conversation.
We were talking about how long can you be present with a thing.
Oh, yes. And then how many times can you split your attention without losing your presence to the thing that you intended to pay attention to?
There you go.
So
Yep.
here I am with Beethoven's Ninth, and I am totally bopping into it. And I hear a conversation next to me. Now, I can put a little bit of my attention on that conversation without losing Beethoven's Ninth. But if my phone vibrates and I allow myself to attend to that as well, then I'm going to stop hearing parts of the symphony. And the more different distractions I get, the more I lose of the symphony. So sometimes I have to attend to more than one thing. I can listen to Beethoven's Ninth Symphony and drive a car at the same time, and there's no problem. Because I only need a little bit of conscious attention from time to time to make sure that I do the right turns and that sort of thing. But if you are dealing with things that require conscious attention, you have a very limited supply of that. And you know, there are exercises that we do to increase your ability to split your attention, because sometimes you have to. But what most of our exercises are designed to do is help you turn your attention into something that cannot be knocked off its center. That laser focus of attention that refuses to be distracted. And that is where when you take that into the practices like the self, self-remembering practice, for instance, or the self-observation practice, then you derive much deeper benefit from doing the practice. Because your attentional space can more effectively hold what you're doing. And that is the entire secret to several superpowers, is to have a very strong attentional space and to be able to do it consciously. Somewhere I mentioned cultivating the ability to listen and see at the same time. I don't even remember what I was talking about. You know, you get old, your memory goes away. But I do remember suggesting to everybody that you practice that. You know, just take a day to see if you can actually listen and watch somebody talk at the same time. Listen to everything that they say so that you could repeat it back, and watch their body language so that you could describe their body language both at the same time. This is something that we practice to extend our intentional space and to create a conscious split in attention.
I guess what makes me curious then is, I mean, clearly what you describe as attentional space is limited. You know, and
Yes.
some people have more and some people less. And so I guess the obvious question is, what limits it? I mean, why? I mean, we're probably spiritual beings or something like that. You know, why is our attentional space limited?
Well, I know that at least part of the reason is through conditioning. In experiments done on intentional space, we noticed that it seems to follow, for instance, you have enough attentional space to hold one sentence at a time. That's like the natural break. But before we had writing, I would suggest to you, our intentional space was bigger. So a lot of the things that we do shrinks our attentional space. When you are typing on your computer, checking your phone, and listening to a podcast and thinking about what you want for dinner, you are working to limit your attentional space.
Yeah, but and I guess, you know, I mean, and then there's that thing of, you know, you can pay attention to what, 9 plus or minus 2 or something like that.
Yeah, it used to be 7 plus or minus 2. I'm now told that it's 4 plus or minus 2 in present day tests. 7 plus or minus 2 was that was the test back in the 60s before we had cell phones.
But so I guess my question still is, what is it that limits that? Is it some sort of a brain capacity?
It's probably all of the above. You know, we have neurologically, we have built-in limits. You know, the hypothalamus and the reticular activating body limit the amount of input that we can be consciously aware of and choose which inputs they are. You know, we have to deal with it at the level of neurology. We have to deal with it at the level of imprinting. We have to deal with it at the level of conditioning. And we have to deal with it at the level of habitual learning. We have all of those. It's not one. I think it's a combination. And yes, so the biological is the hard limit.
So you're not suggesting, or are you suggesting, that the exercises that you sometimes give, you know, expanding your spatial awareness and so forth, that changes your physiology, your brain?
No, I'm not suggesting that changes your physiology. I'm suggesting that works above the level of that, and it makes it possible to access more of what is possible. But you're not going to, the only way I know for sure to expand the neurological limits is heavy psychedelics. Seriously. Because what a psychedelic substance does is that it widens the neurological filter. It messes with what is allowed to come in. And, you know, for better or worse. But other than that, I mean, there are some exercises that you can do that help you do the same thing. And I'm sure that there is a hard limit to how much that is, that as long as we have human brains, we're not going to get past that. We don't know what the extent of that limit is yet, because none of us have really approached it, as far as I can tell. So think about, there are the neurological limits. Biology has its say. Then there are the limits that are imprinted on you through your various points of imprint vulnerability. Then there's what gets conditioned in you culturally, from your family, from your personal experiences. Then there's the habits that you build. And then at the very, very thinnest, weakest part of it, way out on the tip, you have things that you've learned. Learning is the weakest part of that. Imprinting is the hardest, is the strongest.
Are you saying that the learning is one of the things, the thinnest of the things that limits your
yeah, you've taught yourself to be limited.
Okay.
You've literally learned to limit yourself, but of all of the things that limit you, that is the weakest.
Okay.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
I was thinking about attention having different channels.
You can model it like that, you know, so you can have your visual attention as one channel, you can have your auditory attention as a channel, you can have your kinesthetic attention as a channel, and that's a valid way to look at it. Yeah.
Well, what I was thinking was, yeah, while you're talking, I'm hearing some noises outside that I hope are firecrackers. Not a big distraction.
No.
I'm sorry to say there's a mouse in here. I was looking at the mouse, still not a big distraction. If there were another conversation and I was trying to hear it and you at the same time, it would be hopeless.
Yeah. Yeah, so that gives you the limits of your ability to split your attention right there.
Mm-hmm. I think there are people who can hear two conversations at the same time.
But Nancy's example is also a good example of the belief. I mean, if you believed it was not firecrackers, but somebody with a machine gun out there, you would, the same sounds would distract you a lot more, right? Would split your attention. So your belief system overlaid on top of it messes with your attentional space. Okay. All right, good enough.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Omar. So that's the basic outline of presence, intention, and attention, and how they work together to superpower your practices. What do you think? Dave, can you apply this?
Yes, you can, and yes, I am. It sounds very reasonable.
How would you apply this to your own life?
Well, I do a lot of the experimentation with the listening and seeing in different ways and using other senses as I walk around or as I do activities. And then there's various practices I've been doing for a long time, and watching them change dynamic over time has been very interesting, and then watching them interface with some of the practices you've given me, and yeah, that type of thing.
Cool. Zainab, what do you think?
So I'm thinking, is it if you want to have that attention, and you're getting to the point where the attention is falling off, and then the frustration kicks in that you're not having that attention, you need to stop at that point, or
Yeah, you need to step back, do your breathing, relax. Frustration is one of those things that is a distraction within your attentional space. It's splitting your attention. So I want you to try an experiment. I want you to count from 1 to 100 in Farsi in your mind, while in English saying, I hate counting. I really hate counting. I don't want to count, but I hate counting. And still continue to count in Farsi. Let me know if you get to 100. And keep repeating the I hate counting. And you can also listen to me at the same time too, because I'm a fascinating character. How's that working for you?
not good.
Yeah. So that is an example of your attentional space being overwhelmed, because both of those require more than half of your attention to do. Which is why I picked those two things, especially when you're switching languages. And one thing I know, it's really hard to think in two languages at the same time. It can be done, but it requires a lot of effort and practice to get to the point where you can do it. So what else do you think? Zainab, we're still talking to you because you are always a delight to talk to.
How can you take those distractions away? That would be the next question.
Okay. How do you take those distractions away? I mean, you do it all the time. How do you say no to one thought so that you can focus on another?
By intention?
Yes, by intention.
And the breath.
Mm-hmm. See, you know the answers to these questions already. But I invite you all to test this out, because as I like to point out from time to time, when Ilmar forgets to point this out for me, I can be completely full of shit. You never know until you test yourself. So, Zoha, what do you think?
I am thinking how a practice of increasing the space, the attention space, can affect it really. I'm trying to think of that. Do you know what I mean?
Not quite yet.
No.
Say it a different way.
Sure. So how can a practice to be attentive increase that space, the attention space? How so?
The same way that the practice of lifting weights will strengthen your muscles.
Great.
Yeah, what you practice gets better.
Mm-hmm.
That's like an immutable law of the universe. If I practice attention, I get better at attention. If I practice intending something and then keeping my attention on it till I've completed that intention, I get better at doing that. If I practice distracting myself, I don't get better. I get worse.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to sit and do marakabe for
Mm-hmm.
an hour, and you kept
Mm-hmm.
your phone next to you, and your phone kept giving you notifications of people on Facebook saying things, how good at you would you be at doing the meditation?
Partly poorly.
Yes.
Yeah.
So until you develop the muscle, you need to remove the distractions. Turn your phone
Yes.
off and put it where you can't see it.
Mm-hmm.
We are now, most of us, literally addicted to the phone. We're like Pavlov's dogs. You hear that ding notification, and you just go, "Oh my God, somebody is saying something on Facebook. I must listen to this. I must read this."
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to break that.
Yes. And then presence is a byproduct.
Presence is the beginning. You can't do any of this unless you're present to start with.
Yep.
So you ask yourself the question, my famous trick question, are you asleep or are you awake?
Mm-hmm.
Check right now. Tell me, are you asleep or are you awake?
I'm awake.
Yes. In that moment, you're present. And I hear somebody's phone going off. Are you going to be distracted by that? Yep, there's Nancy over there looking at her phone. We
It
saw
was,
that.
yeah, well, it was ringing. I have told them it will be later. But
Yeah,
yes, I was distracted.
yeah, but that's perfect because you gave us the exact example of what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are like Pavlov's dogs. We are conditioned to that damn ring. And one of the best things you can do for yourself is to break that conditioning. Break the conditioning to the things that steal your attention. There was an interesting experiment that was done with Zen monks who are really good at meditating and have been meditating for a long time versus normal people, whatever you want to call them. So here you have a bunch of normal people, and they're sitting there and they're trying to be mindful, you know, doing their meditation. And periodically, the scientist who is behind them rings a bell, bong, and everybody's hooked up to EEGs, right, with all of the things. And so they're measuring the response in the brain waves. And so what happens is the first time the bong happens, they're pulled up out of their meditation. Their attention goes to the bell. The second time it happens again, but not so much. The fifth or sixth time, you've tuned it out. So you're not paying attention to the bell anymore, and you're still focused on your whatever it is that you're doing. Now, then they did the same thing with the Zen guys. Put the things on their head, which is easier because Zen guys have no hair. I tried that, you know, I got rid of my hair and I'm still not a Zen guy. I'm not sure what's up with that. I think I was cheated. But so they hook them up and they do the bong. And what they get is a much smaller spike in brain waves. But the interesting thing was, as many times as they bonged the bell, they would get exactly the same spike, and they never tuned it out. When asked later what it was like for them, is that this was part of their experience, and it was new every time it happened, because their attention was so focused on their meditation, they did not tune it out through expectation. They allowed themselves to be surprised in every moment by the stimulus. And I read that a study like probably 30 years ago, and it has stuck with me this whole time because it's so fascinating how that mind goes. And I am very sorry for all of the sounds of the wind if they're being picked up on the mic. Good. I was thinking, oh, I can just turn my mic off, but I realized that then you couldn't hear me talk, which may be a blessing. You never know. Noor, you have a thought?
Oh, I was just gonna say no. We can't hear those things, and alas, no, you can't escape.
Drat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go escape.
Go escape. Come back in a moment. I'll wait to do the commercial till you get back.
Oh no, I'm not going anywhere. So if you want to do the commercial now, let's.
Okay, so that's first. That's pretty much all I have to say on the subject tonight. We can discuss it further, either in the forum or however you like. We can do this again if you have more things you want to talk about. Up to you.
Dave needs to escape.
Dave,
bye.
Go escape. Take care.
Okay, so do we have any last questions before we wrap up? Questions?
And then I subject you to news and commercials. Ilmar, tell me.
Well,
I can always count on you.
Yeah, I guess, what gets me curious now is it seems like this presence, attention, intention is almost like a triangle.
It is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now, I don't know if there are degrees of presence, but my hypothesis would be that if you raise any one of those three corners, you tend to raise the other two also.
Yeah, you pretty much
if you're more present, you get more intention, and you get more attention. If you get more stronger intention, you become more present, and so forth. So
I would say that's exactly correct.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, if you look at the logo of the announcement that I did, you'll see this triangle setting up on it, because that's exactly how we think of it. And I likened it. You remember when we were kids in school and the fire marshal showed up and taught everybody about fires? Did that ever happen to you? Think back.
It was atomic bombs for us, but all right, go ahead.
Yeah, well, we did that too. But when I was a kid, first of all, there was the atomic bombs and diving under the desk, which gave me a reason to hate the Russians for my entire life. Go figure. I was traumatized. But the fire marshal would show up every year and teach us about fires. And he showed us the fire triangle. And he said, without these three elements, there cannot be a fire. And that is, of course, heat, fuel, oxygen. You take away any one of those, and you cannot have a fire. If you take away heat, no fire. You take away oxygen, nothing can burn. You take away fuel, there is nothing to burn. So this triangle of presence, intention, attention is like that. If you remove one of them, there is nothing. Doesn't work. Yeah. And if you increase any aspect of it, you increase all three. If I increase heat, I'm not going to grow more fuel, but I'm going to burn more fuel, and I'm going to use more oxygen. So it's the same thing. If I increase my intention, my presence and my attention will tend to go up. If I increase my presence, then attention and intention go up. I don't think that there are degrees of presence. It's not like you can be, presence is like pregnancy. You can't be partly pregnant, right? You're either present or you're not. But the strength of your presence can be increased. The depth and width of your presence, that you can be seriously present, for a long bit of time. And I think it's more duration than anything else. I think. Don't have an absolute answer on that, but that's my best guess at the moment. So yeah, that's a very good.
Presence isn't attentional space, basically.
Yeah, but that's a really good observation, and I'll probably steal that from you.
You're welcome.
All right, commercials. Dun, da, da, da. We have several things coming up. We are still going to do the new Enneagram course. That has not disappeared. It is, we're trying to fit where it should fit into the timeline, but it is going to happen and you will all get to join it. And I have some of your names and email addresses and all of that, and we will get it done. But we also have another course coming up that has been asked for a number of times, and I've been nagged enough that I think that it's time to do it, which is the course on the rasas. Rasa is a Sanskrit word that can mean taste, it can mean essence, it can mean subtlest part. And this is a teaching that is very, very old. Goes back, according to my understanding, to the rishis, the ancient sages up in the Himalayas. And it talks about the 9 primordial qualities of human, what makes you human, like expressed in very specific ways that all human beings experience them. And since I say 9, of course, you're going to think of the Enneagram, and they are not intentionally related, but they sure fit together nicely.
Yep.
And so we're going to look at the 9 rasas and how to actually use them as part of the work. That's going to be coming up soon. There will be a small fee for that class. It'll probably be 6 weeks. 6 weeks to do 9 rasas. Probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to the class, and it'll be like the other ones that we have done, where you can either join in live, which we would prefer that you do, or you can watch it afterwards at your leisure if you have subscribed to it. Then we are going to sell the 2 classes that we have done, the one on the Enneagram of Personality and the one on the 3 laws and 6 processes, for a small fee. For people who haven't had it, we will let you have it. So that's coming up just in time for Christmas or something like, no, Christmas, just in time for Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
Probably not for Valentine's Day, but yeah, give it to somebody you like. So those are our announcements. These are all coming up. Be excited. Of course, those of you who have taken these courses already have free unlimited access to them, so you don't need to buy them. Your links all still work to every single video, audio, and PDF file and everything for those. And if you'd lost your links, if you have somehow lost your links to those classes and you took them, you could probably ask me for another one, and yeah, I might charge you for it, and I might not. You never know. Seriously, that was our deal when you guys took the classes, is that you get access to the material forever, which you can download yourself, which I recommend, because you never know when Google's going to go belly up.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't know about that. Maybe someday in the future.
Maybe. Anyway, so that's all I have to say for tonight. Thank you all for coming. It is always a delight to hang out with you guys, and you are great fun, and you ask good questions, and we'll see you next week. Take care.
Thanks for joining
You too.
us. Yeah. All right. Do you want to...
I'm gonna leave as well. Thank you.
All right.
All
Bye.
right.
Take
Bye.
care. We're still recording, by the way.
Oh, yes, we should stop that.